Good morning, everyone. I know this is a bit unusual to have a meeting like this online, but I'm really happy that so many of you are able to be with us this morning. Welcome. There is a chat feature in the Meet, so if you have questions along the way, if you could type them into the chat, and then we'll make sure that once I've given you some information that we spend some time at the end just answering whatever questions you might have. What I'd like to do is actually start with the end in mind. So we have our graduate profile at Masters, and you can read it on the slide, but I'll just give you the highlights. We aspire to have our students pursue their personal vision without limitations. There's two parts to that. One is academic excellence, and the second is by having them become imaginal leaders. And I will explain both of those in the presentation. Let's start, though, with the basics. There are requirements in order to graduate from high school in Alberta. However, those requirements are set up for all students. So it really is an expectation that every student in Alberta achieves a high school diploma. So I'll just go through the requirements on the left. You need to have 100 credits. Any full course in high school counts as 5 credits. So whether that's math, English, social, biology, and so on. And so all of these credits accumulate towards your 100. But you also need phys ed in grade 10 at least, career and life management, a grade 12 English, a grade 12 social, a grade 11 science, a grade 11 math, and 2 full option courses. So of course that list is not very cumbersome because that leaves a lot of latitude for the other courses students can take. If you move your attention though to the right, in order to qualify for post-secondary admissions, which is really what we want all of our graduates to be able to do, there's a secondary list, or really a more extensive list of courses they need to have. You need to have 5 full grade 12 courses. So that's 5 of those 5 credit courses. 4 or 5 must be core. So that really depends on the program. If you are looking at something that is highly competitive, or say something in the field like engineering, you will need to have 5 core courses. That would be English, math, calculus, physics, chemistry would be a pretty good example of that. Many other programs allow for 1 option at the 5 credit level finished all the way to the end of grade 12. And you can see the core listed below. And so the other thing I would just mention that you always want to keep in mind is a second language, French or Spanish, is counted as a core subject for university admission. The sweet part of that, though, is that there's no diploma exam. So as you think about what courses might your student take as they move through high school, you want to bear in mind really the second list because you want your child to be able to apply to university of their choice. The other things that are foundational for post-secondary readiness include, I think a reasonable list that I'd just like to talk through. So we all know the first one. Academic content is key. Academic readiness is key. Study skills are key. Being able to operate at a critical thinking level is very important. It also is helpful that students actually align their choices in senior high with their aspirations for post-secondary. So really what we do is, if you go to the second bullet, we are always looking for ways to personalize the high school experience. That can be done through core courses, for example, which sciences you study, but it also can be done through the option courses students choose to take. There are many other aspects to high school that are new, interesting, and exciting for students, and again, I will get to those in a couple of minutes. Making sure you have teachers who are strong in their content areas, and again, that's a commitment that we have here at Masters, is that our teachers are really they're experts in the content that they're teaching. And then again, providing the personalized student experience, that's not just for academics. So that can be through things like work experience, but it can also be through things like dual credit programming. And again, I will get into some of those details as we go along. In addition, so this is my list keeping on going, having access to a career counselor is really valuable. So at Masters, we have a career and academic counselor who really belongs to us and has become an expert in this field. Her name is Charlene Foster, and the lovely thing we have is she actually has an office in our building. So although she goes out to visit universities and to gather information from them, and she does visit work sites for students, her actual physical location is here with us. In this era of COVID, of course, if you wanted to book an online meeting with her, that's also entirely possible. I always encourage families to book with our career counselor as much as you need to, because it really does vary family to family. If you are having your second or third child moving through high school, you might have a really good understanding of how it all works. If it's your eldest child, you might want to visit with Charlene already starting this year, just to understand a little bit about what are the next steps that your child will take. And then we look at things like having opportunities to engage in unique ways. So we do focus on time for learning as being flexible. And under high school redesign, there is a greater allowance for high school students to move within the time frames that work for them. So some of the interesting things, for example, would be if you were adept in a foreign language, there are ways to advance through the levels in senior high at a very rapid pace. If you need to spend a little more time with a course or rework even parts of a course, it's also possible to do that now. And then, of course, we value technology, we value project-based learning. These skills that students are experiencing now in high school, we see more and more in university programming, rather than perhaps what we're used to in our traditional mindset of even going to university being a sit and get. Many of their first courses, they will be required to do presentations. They will be required to access through technology assignments, to submit back through technology. Many of the skills we're using even through our Genius Learning platform, they will then be able to apply those to their tech platform in university. Specifically, our programming is targeting for all graduates to be able to apply to the post-secondary school of their choice. What that means is our core courses are essentially what we call -1. So if you're not familiar with courses in Alberta, there's actually 4 strands or sequencing of core courses. It goes -1, -2, -3, and -4. -1 is understood to be those courses that are prerequisites for university admission. The only exception really to that is math. And so this is a really great highlight for many students who might find math a struggle or find it their more challenging course. If they choose to take the math at the -2 level, universities will honor that course as a true university prerequisite, assuming it's not a field like physics or engineering. There's even some programs where -2 math is preferred. So a good example of that would be nursing. In a nursing program, the math you need is about ratios and proportions. It's not really about the abstract understanding of mathematical equations. In grade 10, we have our programming set where students take what is called worldviews and literature. That is a year-long combined course that includes social studies 10-1, English 10-1, and world religions 30. So you can imagine in the global world we live in how helpful it is for students to have a broad understanding of worldviews. The other advantage this course gives our students is because it has 2 core courses and the world religions embedded in it. That means they actually earn 13 credits in the time space that would be allotted normally to just 10 credits. And again, under high school redesign, which everybody will have some element of familiarity or not, but under high school redesign, these are the types of choices we can now make as a school to give extra advantage to our students. Then they will take science and math at the grade 10 level. So when I was in high school, you took biology 10, physics 10, chemistry 10. That's not true anymore. Science in grade 10 is called Science 10, and they do a third of each of those courses. Why they do that is because we don't want students to self-select out too soon, okay, well, I'm not going to put physics in my timetable, and then regret it later or have to catch it up later. So that's a provincial decision that students will take a Science 10 course that looks at all 3 disciplines, and then really they're making a choice after that. For the math course, it's also called Math 10C. Math 10C covers your prerequisites for Math 20-1 or 20-2 going forward. So again, you're not going to make a big decision about whether math is -1 or -2 as early as 10th grade. Grade 10 is meant for students. They will mature. They mature as people. They mature as learners. The whole idea is the curriculum is set to give them that one more chance to get their feet under them. For me personally, junior high math was a huge struggle. And then by grade 10, I went, oh wait, I get it. And then I stayed with math all the way through to calculus, became a senior high math teacher. Then you may have heard about some of the other things that I'm going to address now. So one of them is what's called AP courses. AP courses is a short form for advanced placement. It's one of those, I would say, topics that students talk about that you'll read a lot in high school literature, or if you attend other high school presentations, you may actually hear them speak about. But I think that it's important that you understand what an AP course is. So AP, or advanced placement courses, are curriculum courses that are established by the College Board, which is the same American organization that sets up the SAT testing for American students to qualify to go to a college. That means the curriculum is not always in sync with what students are learning in Alberta. In addition to that, to qualify for that advanced placement course, to be considered for university recording or even a university transcript, their entire grade is set on the final exam. And so that can be a bit of a high stakes choice. So for example, if you were going to take the AP calculus and you were applying to engineering, you may not want a 3 out of 5 on an exam to go on your university transcript, even though a 3 on that final exam says you have a good understanding of calculus. So what we've chosen to offer for the advanced placement courses is AP European History, the AP Calculus, and AP English Literature. We find those 3 fit extremely well for our students for what will help them for university. But why they take these courses is to learn at a higher level, to experience the challenge of where will text-based learning go in university, where will their math go in university. But they don't always write the final exam because, again, it can be very high stakes. So we do allow our students to experience that high level of learning without putting a great deal of risk to it. Many of our students will choose to write the final exams, but we do leave it for them to be sure it's the right choice for them. You may hear schools also talk about, for example, I'm taking pre-AP, so pre-AP Math 10. Well, just so you're aware, there is no curriculum in Alberta called pre-AP Math 10. What they're saying is we will teach Math 10 at a challenging level. We do that with all of our students. So any student who enrolls with us in 10th grade is essentially taking a pre-AP level, meaning they stick with their coursework, they do their due diligence as a student, they work hard at it, they will have the skills that they need to take the AP coursework in grade 11 or 12. What I think is actually more exciting, or even perhaps more appealing, is what's called dual credit. So dual credit is relatively recent in Alberta. What that means is students can access programming from Alberta colleges and universities, and they get high school credit along with university credit at the same time. However, unlike the AP programming, these courses have coursework along the way. assignments and labs and experiences, which means a student grade is not all about one final exam, which even when you take a university course, there isn't a course where one final exam is 100% of your grade. This is much more genuine to what students will experience when they go to university. The other beautiful part of dual credit is the range of topics. So anything from criminology, pharmacy studies, there is an aviation ground school, there is internet studies, meaning web-based and programming, including things like medical terminology as another example. And these courses are accessed from multiple institutions. So courses come from places like SAIT, Bow Valley College, the University of Calgary, but the list of choices under dual credit is very extensive. And it actually allows students a broader range of choices and also to expand outside of what would typically be a high school liberal arts course. So if you take AP English Literature and you love literature, it's a great experience. But if you take English 30-1, you are well set for university, but you might want to supplement then with something like the medical science terminology, which would be something completely different than the traditional high school programming. Conservatory credit means if you have a child who is studying music instrumentally at a conservatory level, meaning they're graded on their practical and on their theory, they can access that for credit. And so all it takes to do that is that they provide to me their music transcripts. So it is music practical grades 6, 7, and 8, and theory 1 and 2. With those documents, they can access up to 15 of the 100 credits towards graduation. It also doesn't exclude them from taking music in high school because there's 15 other music credits available. So it is just another way that they can use something they're doing outside of school to access credits towards graduation. We have looked very carefully at our high school options, and I know something that's often talked about is, I want more options, I want more options. Practically speaking, in grade 10, a student has room for 2 options. That would be really their maximum by the time they finish off comm, phys ed, and their core programming. And if they branch out in the sciences in grade 11 and 12, which is really what our students do, they will have room for only 1 option in their schedule. So what we find for our students is, even though it might originally appear, okay, well, there's not 100 option choices, well, they really don't need 100 option choices, they just need a few. And so what we've done is we've hand selected the ones that we know are highly engaging for students. So those are things like forensic science, which is the study of criminology, things like psychology, coding, programming, and then of course the fine arts. Beyond that, if a student wants to personalize their experience in high school, we are accessing options through what is called Career and Technology Studies. So for those of us who went to high school many years ago, so I'll include myself in that, then we took home ec or shop. We're kind of the options that were out there. Maybe something like typing, or maybe something like an accounting course. But there wasn't the hundreds of choices that students have now. So Career and Technology Studies is a program that allows high school students to get credit for almost anything you could imagine. There are 5 strands within CTS. So they are things like business, health and human services, natural studies, so you think things like outdoor ed, horticulture, those types of things. Within each strand, there's substrands. So there's about 40 substrands in CTS. Within those 40 substrands, there are 1 credit modules, and there's about 600 of them, which means just by having access to CTS, we're actually able to offer students whatever option they want. So what happens often for us is we'll have a couple of students in high school who are pursuing something, say like fashion or sewing, others who are doing very high-end digital photography, some that are continuing on with coding, and then things like outdoor ed also fit in that list. So if we have a cohort of students who all are interested in a similar topic, so for example, this year we have a group who are in the CTS strand all studying leadership together and building foundations for their resume through getting high school credit at the same time. So we do have cohorts who often do the same option together, but we also have the flexibility to say to a student, what are you passionate about? What do you want to do after high school? And so the other thing we see on the other end, the students who are ready for this, and I think through our junior high programming, we have really most of our students who are ready for this level. They have a teacher, they have a set curriculum that they will go through, they will have set assignments they will go through, but they don't all have to do the same thing at the same time. It also means what they're doing outside of school, again, can be brought into the building for credit. So a good example would be, I often have students who are entrepreneurs. They're running their own small businesses, whether it's lawn mowing, snow care, working at jobs online. What they're doing outside of school can now count for credit. If you love photography and you're out taking pictures as a young person, and let's face it, everybody who has a cell phone is a photographer, they can now use that photography for credit. They're not being held back learning about things that they already know how to do with their photography skills. They can now reach up to a higher level and take the course they're most interested in. So when you have all these strands, even if 6 of us were in photography together, I might be doing action photography and somebody else might be doing black and white, somebody else might be doing wildlife or portrait. We're still personalizing the experience for each student. And really that's our heartbeat, is we want students to have an experience that covers everything they need for university admission, but also allows them to personalize their high school journey to the absolute maximum that we can make available. And then really, how do you move forward as a young person? How do you get started? How do you make these career decisions? How do you know where is that next step past grade 12? So what we have looked at is what we call imaginal leaders. And what that means is when I get to the level of being an imaginal leader, when I've embraced those qualities, when I've become adept in those skills, what we're challenging our students with is that they're designing their own future. So we call that a future by design, not default. And so you might think when you hear the word leader that you're thinking leadership skills, like leading a group of people or I'm running a business team. When we speak to imaginal leadership, it's about leading in your own life. It's about looking at where is our world going, what are my personal skill sets, and how do those two mesh together to get me started on a career journey. And of course, self-knowledge is absolutely key. Students need a deep understanding of themselves. And you can see where it says, if you don't know where you're going, you'll end up where you don't want to be. So we have set up intentional programming towards students creating this future by design and not by default. And so I'm just going to pause here. I'm going to take a little breather. And what I'm going to share with you now is a video of 3 of our current grade 12 students. And really each year we ask our grade 12s if they would be willing to do this for us. And we always have more students than we can fit in. But we do have 3. They're just going to speak to what their personal experience has been as a student in Masters High School.
Hi, my name is Bella Dutoit, and I'm going to talk a bit about why I stayed at Masters, what some of the opportunities are, and how Masters prepares you to be future ready. The reason why I stayed at Masters was a mix between a personal decision and a decision my parents made. On my side of it, I wanted to stay to create a sense of stability. Throughout elementary, I moved schools quite a bit, so in staying at Masters, that was me taking control of my academic career. As well, there were people that I knew I wanted to become better friends with throughout high school. Some of the opportunities at Masters definitely include the extracurriculars and options, so although Masters is a smaller school and doesn't have as many options as the bigger high schools, if you do get involved in some of the options or activities, it is generally a lot of fun. For example, I've been involved a lot in productions and in drama options, and through that I've actually found what I want to take in university. And through my experiences in production, I've been able to gain more leadership opportunities as I get older throughout the process, and I've also been able to interact with students from across different grade levels. As well, through being in production, I've also had to learn to balance my school workload with production workload. A way that Masters has prepared me to be future ready is by allowing me to experience different areas that I would possibly be interested in for university. Personally, I do want to go into drama and acting, so throughout the drama option and through my experiences in production, I've been able to experience different aspects of the career path, and I've been able to experience this through rehearsals, different group projects, and individual projects. I've also been able to communicate with teachers along with Miss Foster about different options for university. I've also had one-on-one time with specific teachers talking about different concerns and talking through ideas for possible university choices. Another really important thing to note is that we were given class time during UPrep to do research on university, whether this was through how to pick a program, how to pick a university, or how to manage scholarships. Overall, I am very pleased with my decision to stay at Masters because it has helped me prepare for the future and it's given me a community feeling at staying at the school.
Hi, my name is Sarah Lutit, and I'm here to talk to you about why I stayed at Masters. I've been here since kindergarten, so one of my factors was that I'm actually just used to Masters, and I found that the transition to high school is a lot easier when you know the kids, you've already seen the teachers in the hallways, maybe even talked to them. You still get to have new experiences and you get more freedom about which are the good things at high school, but it generally made me feel more comfortable going into high school when I already knew how the school system worked and what the teachers were looking for. Another thing that I really liked about Masters is how small it is because you develop a connection with the teachers, and I found for applying to university or just going for job references, it's a lot better when the teachers have something to say about you and they know you well enough that they can speak praise. One thing that I got the opportunity to do this year was take a dual credit course, which is when I took a university course at the same time as my high school courses. I am currently enrolled in the pharmacy assistant program at SAIT, and I think it really opened my eyes to see how much Masters prepared me for university because I feel a lot more ahead of the kids in my grade of how much work is expected of you and how much studying is expected of you. Masters has helped me balance these classes with school I think better than a lot of other classes were because I know the teachers, I can talk to them, I can get lessons after school if I need to, or they are able to delay assignments, and really they just work with me together to make sure that I get the help I need and I can still get good grades in high school and also in these university classes. I like the dual credit because I got to see what sort of jobs that I think I'm interested to see if I actually like doing that, because for most of high school you're like, I think I like this, and this opportunity actually allows me to see, okay, I'm doing it. Do I like it for real? Generally, the reason I stayed at Masters is I think it better prepared me for what was going to happen after school. It was less about what was happening during my high school experience and more about what the rest of my future is going to look like.
Hi, my name is Jack Agnew. Today I've been asked to speak with you guys about what I think you should know when considering Masters for high school. So I'm going to start off with some frequently asked questions. One of the biggest questions I get is, how is Masters different from other high schools? One of the main ways is the size. So Masters, as you know, is a lot smaller than a lot of the other schools. And there's pros and cons to this. Some of the pros are you form really strong relationships with teachers and peers as you're all forced into super close proximity. Now, this can be good or bad for some people, but for me personally, it's quite good, as I appreciate the teacher knowing my name at the end of the day. Now, a con about this is Master doesn't have some of the larger options courses as other schools. Another question I get is about the courses that Masters offers because it is a smaller school. Now, Masters offers all of the same courses as some of the larger schools do. Masters offers everything from AP History to Math 10 and 20 and 30 at all different levels. Now, this surprises some people because they assume just because Masters is a smaller school that there's less options, but this isn't always the case. Another question I get is what the community is like at Masters. Because it's smaller, we are all really close, both as teachers and students. When I walk down the hallways, teachers who haven't taught me in 3 or 4 years ask me how I'm doing, and I'm able to tell them the truth. This is something that's really important to me as a person. Another section that I'd like to talk to you all about is character, both as myself and as a grade. So, the grades are tricky, as we all know. You get a lot of different children forced to compete in a pretty competitive environment where you're being evaluated at every turn, but Masters has a really great community I've found. I've talked to other kids and they graduate and they don't even know half the people in their entire grade and think, I didn't even know that they went to this school. Masters is not the case though, as I personally have formed a relationship with every student and teacher in the school on at least somewhat of a level. Another section within character is who I am. Now, I don't really know all of you, so I'm not going to get too interpersonal, but Masters has really taught me a lot about myself as a person. And yeah, I know half of you are probably rolling your eyes and saying, oh, this guy is so cheesy. But the truth is, I have changed a lot. I am in no way the same person who I was 6 years ago when I first started my journey at Masters. One of the main reasons I stayed, though, is because I liked what I was discovering about myself. I liked learning what I do and don't want from a future, thanks to UPrep. Finally, I'm going to talk about why I stayed. Now, everyone's reasons for staying is a little bit different. Personally, I stayed because I don't really like change. Change is something that makes me uncomfortable and squirmy, and I don't know what to do with it all the time. But with Masters, I knew what to expect. And yeah, it does change. It changes a lot between every grade. With Masters, I knew what to expect. I knew the smaller class sizes, and I had teachers teaching me again that had taught me a few years ago. I also really like being able to talk to my teachers before and after classes. I'm able to develop a personalized learning plan that best suits my needs. Those are kind of the reasons that I chose to stay at Masters. I hope that my information helps to inform you in your choice, and no matter what your choice is, I wish you all the best.
I really want to thank Bella and Sarah and Jack for taking that time. We really just left it with them. We said, what would you want to say to the parents and students who are going to hear this presentation? And I think if I was to sum up what I heard them say, it would be community and opportunity. So I think you heard a strong message about community amongst peers, as well as community with us as staff. We want to be part of that community that helps finish raising your child. And we know the teenage years are challenging. We know that they're challenging as young people live in a complicated world, and especially in the era that we're in right now. And we want very deeply to be a part of that community with them. And then I think the second thing I really heard them address was opportunity. So opportunities to be in drama and robotics, and to be on sports teams, as well as being able to travel and not having to choose between those activities, but actually being able to pick and choose which ones they want to be a part of. And then, of course, Sarah is one of our students who is pursuing the pharmacy assistant dual credit programming, which means by the end of grade 12, she actually is a certified pharmacy assistant, which is really exciting. So I would just like to go back to the intentionality of how we're getting our students to where we're getting them by the end of grade 12. And so when we speak to becoming an imaginal leader, we have directed the programming into a course called UPrep. And there's UPrep 10, UPrep 11, and UPrep 12. In UPrep 10, the focus is on purpose. It's on learning, who am I? What choices do I need to make in my future? Not to make those choices when you're 15, but to learn how do we make big choices in life. And the three main topics are personal choices, resource choices, meaning finances, so we will look at budgeting and money and investing and all those good things, and career choices. They learn how to do practical things like write a resume, to edit their resume, to go through a job interview and see what that feels like. And so it really is very, very foundational to those beginning skills. In the UPrep 10, they will cover off their career and life management, or their COM credits that are required for graduation. In grade 11, we expand our view, and I would say grade 11 of the three levels is actually the most challenging. In grade 11, they engage in future studies. So they are looking at our world. They're looking at technology and economics and healthcare and AI and many other topics, and exploring where is our world taking us? Where are these trends likely to predict where the future is going to be. If you don't have a 10 or 15 year window of where our world is going, at least most predictably, you could engage in a career path that isn't going to exist anymore. The other thing students will catch is many of them will have parallel career paths. It won't be a first and then a second and then a third, because our world is changing. And they will also catch glimpses of the future. What are those odd little things that, if they become a reality, could change everything we know? And I think COVID-19 this year is a very good example of that. It's something that, if you were paying attention, you might have predicted could happen, but certainly now that it has shifted so much in the world we live in right now. And not that we want them to be able to predict everything that can happen, but we want them to have the skills to adapt to what does happen. In grade 12, we go all the way back to the student. How do I apply to university? How do I order my transcript? How do I search for scholarships? It becomes very practical, because the fall of grade 12 is when they really need to get those applications out there, and we want to support them as they do that. And then the other piece in grade 12 is they will do a manageable leadership project. So we call it the impact project. And the idea is for them to experience looking for a need, proposing a solution, and following it through. It's not about whether their project is actually successful or not. What they are assessed on is the skills they develop along the way. How do they adapt when they hit a roadblock? Can they adapt? How do they pull a team together? How do they actually know the need of somebody else in our community, and to know that that need is not yet being met? After they do their presentation, they've been through the whole cycle with their impact project. This now gives them another piece for a resume or a job interview. So you could imagine if you sat down in a job interview as a young person, say for a co-op assignment, they might ask you, when have you worked as a team? What happened when that team didn't function well? How did you compensate for that? How did you work through it? They're looking for those skills other than what students are learning in their subject areas. The other main aspect of being ready and being successful at post-secondary or the university level, there's actually a set of skills that can be tracked through research that will help students be the most successful and stick with it. As you probably know, there's a high dropout rate when students don't feel attached or strong when they attend a university. They actually end up floundering a bit. And so oftentimes I find students will think, well, if I just go to a big high school, then I'm ready for a big university. Or sometimes even parents will ask me that, wouldn't it be a disadvantage if I was in a small high school and then my child wants to go to this great big university? Research actually doesn't support that. The skills that you can see here are what dictate who is most successful in the transition to university. And so these are the skills that we're teaching our students in their regular classes, but also very intentionally through our U-Prep programming. The other aspect, of course, as I mentioned, is all the opportunities to get involved. And of course, I couldn't list them all in one slide, but there's many ways students can get involved outside of class time. But for us, it's not just get involved. So join, learn, and then lead. So what matters to us is, okay, so you've learned to be a strong debater. Can you organize a debate tournament? Okay. If you are a mentor, can you teach other students how to be mentors? If you have learned how the robotics skills work, can you now lead in the robotics area? And we find this model to be probably the greatest strength we have as a school, is as students are learning themselves, by the time they get to high school, grade 10, grade 11, grade 12, they're actually able to take a leadership role in those areas that they're most excited about. I would also mention at the bottom, I put the word initiator because some of our best experiences, extracurricular clubs, have actually come from students saying, I see a gap, could we do this? And so the other thing we really want is that back and forth relationship with our students, which really breeds the ownership piece, is if you see something you want to start, say so. We will do everything we can as the adults in the building to support them towards that. So really, how do you increase your chance of getting into a university? You need a couple of things. You do need your top grades. But really what you need in Alberta, in Canada, and really in most schools around the world is you need your main 5 courses that I mentioned at the beginning at a strong academic average. That is the simplest, clearest, straightforward path to the university of a student's choice. And sometimes it gets overcomplicated as we start to talk about all the other things students can choose to do. So if you're feeling a bit like, well, there's a lot of information, your main takeaway is students really need that strong initial academic average. The other piece then is the professionals who can speak to them outside of the classroom. So grades on a transcript speak to one aspect of being a student. What I've seen over the last few years is where I used to write a reference letter for a student, I might say they're reliable, they're dependable, they show confidence. Now when I'm writing a letter, everyone wants to know, how do I know that? When did I see them leading? What did I observe while they were leading? Did I see them be the stage manager, and how did they do that? And they want very specific examples in the references that are being provided for students. And of course, getting to know and have that community with the adults in a building like Masters gives them that advantage to have those relationships, to ask any one of us, would you write me a letter of reference? And we would be able to do that confidently, intelligently, and truthfully. So, I have talked a lot. I know I probably have given you a lot of information. I'm hoping you were able to put questions in the chat. So Mr. DeHart is going to give me a little bit of a hand now and give me some of those questions, but don't be scared to keep giving us questions. If you need to sign out at any point, of course, you feel free to do that. We will send out this presentation later today or on Monday if you need to go back for your own reference, or if you know of other families who weren't able to attend live this morning, if you could just remind them to please maybe take some time and go through the presentation on their own. And just in case some of you are signing up fairly soon, I will also remind you, I'm always happy to sit down and talk with you, have a phone conversation with you. If you have specific questions about your son or daughter that you want to just have a conversation with myself or Brian about, we're always happy to do that. Easiest way to contact us initially is probably by email, firstname.lastname@masters.ab.ca. So I'll just ask Mr. DeHart if there's any questions or if he wants to start by making a comment, and we'll go with the questions.
I first just want to say well done, Mrs. McAllister. That was a lot, and I have sat through this information session like 5 times now, and I'm still learning every time I use it. So it's fantastic. But we'll jump right into the questions. We only have one so far, but I'm sure there are many things out there. But the first question is, when do students select their grade 10 courses?
That's a great question. So we will ask students for initial feedback in the spring. So we just ask them, what are you interested in? But bear in mind, a couple of things. They all need social, science, English, math, phys ed, and comm, or UPrep as we call it. So many of those choices are prescribed for them already. And then we always encourage our grade 10 students to take a grade 11 science in semester 2 of grade 10 to get a leg forward on that. Then if they stick with their foreign language, either French or Spanish, there's actually just a couple of options left that you're going to choose from. But we are not pressed for students, will I get in? If you want to take forensics, we're going to put you in forensics. If you want to take psychology, you will get psychology. We always give out an initial timetable prior to the end of June, and then discuss course changes right into the first week of September.
Excellent. Our next question is about dual credit. Which universities or schools are we currently working with?
So currently we have a relationship with the University of Calgary, Ambrose University, SAIT, Bow Valley College. I believe there's one from Old, and then the ground school aviation is from Prairie Bible Institute in Three Hills.
Yeah. Next question is about our alumni. Have any of our alumni gone on to Ivy League schools?
They have, although I would say that that choice is actually one that most of our graduates save for their second or third degree. So when you look at a beginning program in university, if you are traveling outside of Canada as a Canadian citizen, as you might imagine, the costs are 5-10 times what it costs to attend university in Canada. What we find most of our graduates do is they get very smart about finances, and they will take typically their first degree at a Canadian university and then look at the graduate level for where would they go for that specialty. The exception to that would be somebody who really knows they want a particular program at a particular high-end or prestigious university that is only offered there. Then it is worth their while, of course by far, to pursue that.
Excellent. Our next question is about CTS, and we're asking where do we get the full list of CTS credits? And I could answer that.
Sure.
Pretty simply, you can actually just go into Google and type in CTS Alberta curriculum. And there's a list. It's approximately 600 different modules, I believe, off the top of my head. But the big piece is if you could imagine it, there's most likely a CTS module dealing with it. I mean, the spectrum runs. I was helping someone do theater makeup recently. I've seen, there's carpentry, mechanics, and so there's a huge assortment of different options out there.
And I maybe just throw in, so if by chance your child is interested in something that somehow doesn't fit in the 600, there is also in Alberta the choice to do something called special projects. So if they had a very, very unique interest outside of school, there is also a way to bring that in, and we would help them do that. One of the other flexibilities I didn't mention is if you have a child who is an athlete in a pretty high-end sport, and that can include dance, swimming, gymnastics, tumbling, pick the discipline, hockey, there are also ways to leverage some of that time towards their phys ed credits. And so that can just create some space in a student's schedule who is very busy with out-of-school sport.
Excellent. Is it possible to do Math 31 at Masters?
Yes, Math 31 is calculus. I did mention that when we pursue the calculus, we do teach it at the AP calculus level, meaning at the advanced university level, with the option to write the AP exam or not. The advice that I get from students who are alumni coming back and speaking with me is they say, absolutely, teach this calculus at that challenging level, because then when they take Calculus 1 in university, it's essentially the same course, but at a faster pace. So when they take Calc 1 at university, they're able to get a very, very good mark in it, rather than, again, like I mentioned, the risk of writing the AP exam and that being your Calc 1 mark. What the students tell me is they love the experience of the math challenge of calculus in high school, and then they leverage that in university.
Excellent. Is enrollment into grade 10 automatic, or is there a process?
Enrollment into grade 10 is like enrollment between any two grades. So in January, it is really up to you as a family to make that decision. I would just say, I guess, if you have academic concerns, so if that's part of what you're concerned about, because our high school is rigorous and we are targeting university acceptance, if you have any questions about the transition academically, potential academic supports, that's a good personal conversation with either Brian or myself.
Yeah. Next up, where can I get a list of available options?
I think what we'll do is we'll send out with this video our frequently asked high school question. So it's a document of questions. But if you want to know really the master list, it is what Brian mentioned. So it is that CTS Program of Studies Alberta that lets you see the 600 choices. After that, you want to keep in mind fine arts, forensics, psychology, anything in the tech coding realm that we already have in place for students.
Yeah, and this leads us really well into our next question. For CTS, is it completely self-study, or do master's teachers assist through the areas of interest?
Again, it really is a variety. So we have students who, they are just like, give it to me, I'm ready to go. And so those students have a teacher, they have directed assignments or projects, and deadlines, and they always have day-to-day teacher support. But if I have a student who is just like, I need to have somebody direct me, or if it's something, as I mentioned, the leadership course example, where we want to have you actually doing leadership, doing volunteerism, then that's not a sit and study from a book. That is with a teacher who's giving you those experiences. If it's something like outdoor education, of course, that's a teacher who's organizing that, going over the wilderness skills, the survival skills, planning out the hiking trips. So there's quite a variety.
Yeah, and we have our music program, which would be similar to what we have in junior high, but a much more advanced level. There's drama, where we do a very traditional style of drama program where they're getting direct instruction, doing activities together. So there is that huge variety. I teach a psychology course right now, and so it's an in-class psychology course. But then I have 3 students in the class working on a more advanced program doing abnormal psychology. And so they're working on modules, and they can come up and ask me questions while I'm teaching the other kids. So it kind of gives you a little bit of an example of what that spectrum looks like. So next question, university requirements say approved course or option. Which of those are approved by masters?
It actually isn't masters who approves them. When they say an approved entrance course, a couple of notes. One is you really need to look at each school individually, so each university and each program. But they are speaking to those -1 courses, so that's biology, chem, physics, math and calculus, English and social, and their foreign languages. Those are those -1 courses. Then you want to look in there and see, is Math 30-2 recommended or accepted? Because that's another possibility. So the courses that we are embedding into our high school programming are the university approved courses for admission. When it comes to options for a program that allows you to put forward an option grade into your average, so it'd be 4 core plus 1 option, it needs to be a 5-credit option from the laundry list of things that we've already talked about.
Yeah, and one of the neat softwares we use is called My Blueprint, and what's really fascinating about that is it actually has the majority of universities built in and the requirements for programs. So our students in grade 10 begin really looking in depth at what are their requirements and building their programming kind of towards those programs with in mind keeping as many options open as possible. Looking at our next question here, who is going to teach Math 31? Is it an in-house teacher or is it online? And also, is statistics available?
For Math 31, it's always an in-house teacher, so it's one of the people from our math department. We have, of course, in our math department 2 people who are previously engineers, one who is a biochemist, and then myself who studied math as a major at university. So it would definitely be one of us. Statistics is a little bit more of a narrowed field of study. That would be more typically a course that we would access from an outside source and provide the student with a space and time with a teacher for that support.
Excellent. Will our kids be getting a similar chat so that they can ask their own questions?
Yes, we always do a session with the grade 9s. You know, we love it when we can just have them all together, because you can imagine the energy in the room that we get with that. So for this year, we will do it obviously with each group separately. We were kind of hoping that some of the grade 9s might have been listening in this morning or might watch this video, but we do go in and we speak with them and we give them that information, because we know already at this time of year, they're getting excited about high school. It is their next big step. And then in the spring, we have a very specific high school orientation to get you through those next steps at Masters.
Excellent. Next question, are Math 31 and CTS Computer Science overlapping or considered the same? Is it worth taking both?
They're very different. So Math 31 is the pure study of calculus. The computer courses that come under CTS are very different from that. There would be perhaps an overlapping type of thinking, and so it may be that a student is very keen to do both, but the study of calculus is what any of us would have done when we took calculus. It is about limits, derivatives, and integrals.
Yeah, and to add to that, our computer science on the high school level really focuses at basic language development. So if they kind of work their way through the CTS programming that we offer, they're going to be studying HTML, JavaScript, some entry-level Python. If they want, they can go a little bit further. We do a little bit of C++. And so it's really an experience of understanding the languages and then a little bit of the logic behind that. So yes, there is overlap, but if CTS or computer science is a direction that students are thinking of going, I would strongly recommend both because that kind of gives you that firm kind of foundation. That's actually what I studied in university at first, was computer science, and I found that balance of calculus and that basic understanding of languages gave me a huge leg up on my co-students in the program.
And if you have a son or daughter who's super keen in this area, then looking at something from the dual credit programming in the programming languages might be something that would be a great advantage for them.
Excellent. And that actually wraps us up for questions for now. But what's going to, oh, wait, no, we've got another one coming in. Thank you, Karen. So can you expand on internships, industry mentor programs that are supported by masters, and how are the students supported to identify these opportunities? What grades can this be started or pursued in?
That's a great question, because I actually didn't address work experience specifically. So Mrs. Foster, so Charlene Foster, who is our career and academic counselor, one of her roles within our school district is she is actually the overseer of all off-campus opportunities. So that would include the work experience and internship opportunities, along with the dual credit programming. And so students can obtain credit through a job they already have, or they can meet with Mrs. Foster and talk through the process of how they can do that. In terms of a partnered internship, of course, in this era of COVID, and I hate to keep saying COVID, but really at this point, so many opportunities are on pause, and that would include students going into, typically into other environments, unless they already have a job in that environment, because everybody's trying to limit exposure. If you have a family friend who is like, you know, in the field and you want to bring us that connection, really through Mrs. Foster, almost any workplace experience can be approved for credit, and she will go through the documentation with the employer, the overseer. And I might also mention, work experience can be paid or unpaid. So if a student is being paid, it doesn't mean they can't have high school credit for those hours as well.
Excellent. So I think that wraps us up here, unless any other questions squeeze in. But yeah, did you have any kind of final thoughts here?
I think just stay in touch with us. We know this is a time where there's lots of questions, there's lots of personal family questions. Sometimes parents just want to talk through, how do we help our child with this decision making? How do we have these conversations? I have parents who will tell me they're letting their child decide. I have parents who tell me they're deciding, and everything in between. Regardless of how you're going to make this decision, my encouragement would just be, keep your child in the process, keep the conversation lively, hear what they have to say, talk them through. Students are often, as you could imagine, emotional, or they may be trying to make a decision based on a friend. And if I could tell you the one piece of advice that I will never forget that my mom taught me, is that I need always to do what's right for me, no matter what my friends are doing. And really, that's what we hope you are able to do as a family. Do what is right for you. Find the high school that makes the most sense, that is the best fit, that gives your child the greatest chance for success. And we just want to bless you in that decision making.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for your time. That was fantastic. It's been a pleasure. And again, you're going to have that moment afterwards where you're like, oh, I should have asked this question. Just send us off the quick email, and we'll get back to you as quick as we can. We will be sending this video out in case I know a few of you signed on a little bit late, and we appreciate you for coming. But we'll be sending this out as soon as we can. So thank you. Have a wonderful weekend, and thank you for all the thank yous. We're just enjoying that right now. So take care.
Thank you.